Okay, part 4 of my crazy life. Yes, okay. So, I was confused as to why the feds could be tailing me. What could I have done? I have no criminal background whatsoever. Absolutely pristine juvenile record. One, because I didn't get caught, and two, I didn't do anything stupid enough to even be considered remotely illegal. Like, if a cop, like when I was a kid, if a cop would have busted me for, climbing over a torn down fence into an abandoned house, he probably would have been like, get your ass home, instead of arresting me. you know? It's kind of hard to explain, but growing up in the 80s, growing up in Cleveland, especially in the neighborhood that I grew up in, the cops were trying to bust the bigwigs. They were trying to get the motherfuckers that were selling the crack, and the gangbangers and thugs and stuff. They weren't worried about little pissant kids crawling under fences and playing in clay pits and barking at the APL people and having it echo down the cliff and making all the animals go nuts that are being let out of the facility. That kind of shit. They were just like, oh, just knock it off. They wouldn't, their priorities were somewhere else, as they should be. Nowadays, you look funny at a cop and they'll arrest you, I guess. I don't know. But that's for another blog about police brutality and all that shit, because, yeah, I saw some videos yesterday, it pissed me off and made me cry. And when I get pissed off and something makes me cry, I get even more pissed off, and it's just bad. But, yeah. So anyway, I had a friend of mine who, her uncle is retired FBI, and I didn't know this at the time, and I was talking to her on the phone, and I said, I think I'm getting tailed by the feds. She's like, holy shit, what did you do now? I was like, no, I didn't do anything. I was like, that's the thing, I didn't do anything wrong. I was like, and I described the cars, I described the type of dress, I described the dude that came into the bar that mentioned my name, and she's like, do you wear a name tag? I'm like, no. I was like, it's a dime. I was like, I could go by any name I want, and they would have to call me by it. And she was like, She's like, tinted windows. I'm like, yeah, tinted windows, dark vehicle, and out-of-state government plates. And she's like, what state? And I was like, I didn't pay attention. I said they were white with red lettering. She's like, She's like, let me ask my uncle and I'll call you back. And I'm like, your uncle? She's like, yeah, he's retired Fed. And I was like, oh. She's like, yeah, I don't like admitting it. I'm like, okay. So she called him, talked to him, and I guess he was able to, contact one of his former colleagues or whatever and do like just a standard search or whatever. And they found nothing on me. But they did find a notation in my file, because everybody has a file, whether you know it or not. Like, either it's a blank file where you just open up the file and dust pops out, because there's nothing in there. Or you open up the file and it's like, oh, I don't know. Whatever the hell they want to put in there, I guess. Whatever, floats their fucking boat, I don't really care. But in my file, it wasn't very long, but it said that I needed to be observed because there was a suspicion of me being an accomplice to Gus's crimes. But they couldn't quite prove it because dates didn't line up. And so they decided they were going to observe me from a distance, some distance, and see whether or not I was still in touch with him, and da-da-da-da, and I wasn't. It wasn't even a conscious thought. I had, at the top of my head, I completely forgot all about Gus. Now, if somebody would have brought him up and been like, oh yeah, that son of a bitch, fuck him, what the hell, or I'd see a semi, and the driver would wave at me and I'd be like, yeah, fuck you, just out of reaction of, not trying to be an asshole, but just out of reaction at that time. I was still pretty raw from, getting my emotions stomped on and played with. Now I wave back, but, at that time I was, 22, almost 23 years old and had an attitude problem. So yeah, finally, I couldn't quite handle it. I felt like I couldn't leave the house. I was getting paranoid. And I was like, I have nothing to fear, really. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to be ashamed of, but I still feel like I can't leave my freaking house because I'm going to get followed by these suits. You know, and when they could just approach me, flash their credentials, and I'd be like, oh yeah, let me tell you what I know and what I don't know, and they can, you know, write it down, and I can sign it, date it, give them a drop of blood, whatever the hell they need, you know, to authenticate it, and then they could be on their merry jolly way, and I can live my life, you know. But finally I was just like, you know what, fuck this. So, the guy came back into the bar, which I thought was really weird. I guess they closed the case, and I guess they wanted to, like, in their own creepy way, say, you know, you have been absolved, go with God, or whatever the fuck, you know. And he came back into the bar, and I was like, oh, hey, nice to see you again, you know. Glad to see that you're around in the neighborhood. Or I said, I'm glad to see that you're around in the neighborhood again, you know. And just tried to act stupid, you know, to see if he'll blurt out my name again like a moron. But he didn't. He got smart. You know, and I was just like, so what'll it be? And he ordered something completely, you know, different than what he had originally ordered, because I had asked him, I was like, you know, I can't remember what it was, but let's just say it was a rum and coke. I was like, rum and coke again, hun? And he's like, oh, you remembered. I said, oh yeah, I remember a lot of things. And I just stared at him for a second, and then turned around and walked away, you know, until he was able to flag me back over and tell me what he wanted, you know, because people were like, hey, another beer, you know, and I had to, you know, move around a bit. Finally got back to him, took his order, gave him his drink. He paid for it, he tipped me and everything like that, you know, tipped me like a $5 or whatever, you know. Again, same weird, out of character fucking tip. And he was like, thank you. I said, you're welcome, officer. And his mouth dropped, and he's like, I was like, yeah, and I leaned in real close, you know, like I usually do with some of the regulars, you know, whenever I would talk to them, you know, like I would sit down for a smoke break, and I'd sit down and rap with them for a minute. They'd let me sit down for a little bit, and sometimes one of the regulars would jump up and serve people for me so that I could sit down. And I leaned in real close, and I was like, look, I know why you're following me, and it's okay. You can follow me all you like. It makes no difference to me at all. I've got nothing to hide. If you have questions for me, I have answers, and I'm more than willing to share those with you. But the next time you decide to follow someone, do a better job at hiding it. Have a good night. And I got back up and I walked away. And he's just like sitting there like, you know, like rattled, you know, like he was trying real hard to maintain his composure, but I guess he was still wet behind the ears, fresh out of training or whatever. And you know, and he finished his drink. He tipped me again. I think he forgot that he had tipped me before. He tipped me a second time and then rushed out the door. And one of the regulars, she comes up to me and she's like, honey, what the hell was that all about? And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, you were awfully friendly with that suit. Do you know him? And I'm like, kinda. She was like, really? She was like, he's kind of cute. I was like, hey, I'm taken. So I wasn't even focused on that. I was like, you know, I knew him from way back, and we had something to discuss. She's like, yeah, because he knew your name. That was interesting. I was like, yeah, he knew my name. I was like, yeah, he's very familiar with me. And, you know. She's like, well, do you think he'll be back? I'm like, no, he ain't coming back. She's like, how do you know? I said, I told him to leave me alone. She was like, oh, he's stalking you? I was like, well, kind of. She's like, you could call the police, you know. If he's stalking you, you know, you could call the police and you could get restraining order. No, it's okay, really. I was like, I told him to leave me alone, and he will. She was like, okay, well, you know, just letting you know, you have rights. And I was like, I know, thank you, honey. You know, and we dropped it and never brought it up again, because the guy never came back again. Yay. And, yeah, after that I was just like, holy shit, I was just kind of starring my own weird, twisted Hollywood movie for a little while there. You know, chalk that up for the frickin' book, you know, because, you know, like I said before, people told me that I should write a book about my life, because so many crazy things have happened in my life that people either don't believe it or they say, that must be true, you can't be making that up. And it's like, no, I really can't. I wish I could. I wish I could say, hey, I made this all up, it's all bullshit, ha ha ha, but I can't. you know, and it's entertaining for a lot of people. It's amusing as hell to even more people, and I find it just absolutely mind-blowing that me, you know, could have such a colorful life, and I'm not really that remarkable, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not trying to, like, go, like, oh, I'm worthless, you know, and have you guys going, oh, no, you're not, and, you know, send me hugs or whatever, but I'm just saying, I'm just a standard, average American chick, living a life that I think should be best on the silver screen, and not mine, you know, but, you know, just the same, you know, life throws you curveballs and you have to figure out how to dodge them or hit them out of the park. And my life has taught me a lot of different strategies on how to either avoid drama or embrace it for a while and just enjoy the ride because there's no way to avoid it, or try to figure out exactly why that drama is being caused, you know, and then that leads into like psychology and all that shit. And I never studied psychology, I just lived it. So I've been able to confuse a lot of shrinks because I know different psychoses and stuff. I don't know the professional terms, but I have my own terms for them, and I used to confuse the shit out of shrinks. So, but yeah, that is part 4. I might do another one. I know I've got to do a karaoke song for someone. They requested it long ass time ago and I totally forgot. So that will be coming up shortly. So I've got to take care of some things. So this is the Yippie Chick from City of Hippie Chickapolis, State of Insanity, Country of Chaos. Wishing you an awesome day, and I will be back. Peace. Oh, that didn't work. Fuck.